Have you ever missed out at an auction feeling disappointed, or have you just started your search and want to make sure you avoid that happening? In today's episode, we'll be discussing how to minimize that risk, how to set a strong foundation and search for properties that are within your budget, making sure you have realistic expectations. Welcome back to another Own It podcast. Today's episode, we'll be discussing setting a foundation and doing an audit, a bit of a checkup on yourself to make sure that you're realistic with your search. The average buyer looks for 6 to 12 months. And in my opinion, that's far too long. So before you start your search, or even if you are searching for a property at the moment, this is a great chance to do an audit to see if you're realistic or if you're not. There are two main factors when purchasing a property: price and the property itself. And it's really important to get a good understanding on both of these. In later episodes, we'll discuss finance, and I'd love to have a mortgage broker on to discuss this in more detail. But understanding the property you want to purchase is just as important. It's really good to understand your motive as a buyer on why you're moving. For some people, it will be more simple. So if you're outgrowing the property you're in, let's say you're in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, like a lot of Melburnians are, and you're wanting to get to that 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom property, then that motive is quite simple. You're looking to upsize. But you can also start to paint the picture of the property you're purchasing. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. That's you understanding what the property is that you're wanting to purchase. And then you just have to align that with your finance and your budget. So that's where a lot of buyers will go wrong, is that they'll want a really expensive, nice property and they don't have the budget for that, or they're not prepared to move out far enough. And the way that these buyers work out that they are unrealistic is by missing out for months on months, going to auctions, speaking to agents, thinking they have a chance to purchase properties that they just don't. What makes it more difficult in Melbourne real estate, for example, is that we have price ranges. So a property could be quoted 1 to 1.1 million. And if you're a buyer with a budget of 1.1 million, you think, I have the top end of the range within my budget, I should be able to purchase this property. However, in our marketplace, properties sell above top of the range, and quite often they sell above top of the range. It's very common. It's actually more common than a property selling within the range. And that's what makes it difficult. Buyers can't sometimes separate what a property's quoted and what a property's worth, and they spend this journey going to properties that are quoted within their budget, but they don't have the budget to purchase these properties for what they're worth. So it is really important from the start to understand what you can afford, so you don't get stuck in this vicious cycle of spending money on building and pest inspections, spending money on contract reviews, and spending your time as well, which is just as valuable as both those other things. So the best thing you can do is sit down on a computer, open up realestate.com.au or domain, whichever one you use, and go through sold properties in the area that you want to buy, okay, that meet the property criteria on the reason, the motive why you want to purchase, and see if there are properties within the last 3 months that have sold that you would consider purchasing. When it comes to starting a buyer's search within my business, this is one of the first things we do. I want to know if a client's realistic or not. From my perspective, I have to take on clients that are realistic, that have a chance at purchasing property. It's not in their interest or my interest to take a client on that we will be looking for 9 months, and I'll have to slowly educate them on why they can't afford what they want to afford. So it's really important from the start. If you're not using a buyer's agent, you do this process yourself. If you can't find any properties that have sold within the last 3 months that you would consider buying, this should be your first red flag that what you're looking for, you can't afford. Often buyers will chase this unicorn property that's 10, 20% above their budget, but because those properties are quoted within their budget, they convince themselves that they can afford them. Often buyers can emotionally value property too. They value properties for prices that they would like to pay. Lots of buyers, when they do this audit, will use properties that are on the market, but that's not a true reflection of what those properties are worth. That's why it's so important to use sold properties. This is why buyers spend so long looking for properties, because they're looking for properties that don't exist. So if you have spent 6 months looking and you do this audit and you see that there's no properties that have sold within the last 3 months, this is the sign for you to adjust your brief. This is where you may consider moving out a few suburbs. This is where you may consider removing a bedroom from your search criteria. So it's really important, if you are looking to purchase, do this audit. And if you're starting off your journey, to do this audit, so then you can set a really strong foundation and you know what's realistic or not, because you're working from sold evidence that tells you what you're looking for is out there. In summary, if you're starting your search or if you've been looking for 6 months, it is really important to do a self checkup and make sure you're realistic, or you may spend time looking for properties that don't exist. I hope you found this information helpful. In the next episode, we'll be discussing open for inspections, how they work, so you can have a better understanding. I'll catch you in the next one.